Well, hi everyone. It's Bronnie here again for another day in Bronnie's world, and it's Super Saturday, day 1045, and I have my superhero Doc Wallach with me again today. He's become my superhero because
Well, you're so sweet. Thank you very much.
well, look, you've been able to help thousands and thousands of people around the world with things that they would normally have died of. And we don't want to die younger than necessary, right? I mean, we all know our number's going to come up one day. When God calls us home, he calls us home, but let's live the best life we can until that day. And that's what I love about you, Doc, that's your aim, and my aim is to help people to live younger longer, but to live the best life until God decides it's our time to go home. So
biblically, in the Old Bible, in the Old Testament, it said a man's years shall be 120. Okay. Now the record in the United States, I don't know if it's the world or the United States, for people who live in the industrialized world, is Jean Calment from France, and she died in 1997 at age 122 years and 164 days. And there's a few people who, have claims that they've lived longer and so forth. And it's possible. The Hunzas, from the let's see here, the mountains, okay, just west of Russia, okay, and there's two sets of mountains there, one of which is the Himalayans, Himalayan mountains, and so they live, their life expectancy is 120, and many live to be 130, 140, 150, and so forth. So what's the difference between them and somebody from a country like the United States? We had some bad news this morning about our life expectancy. For years, our life expectancy has been going up and up and up and up, and everybody, yay, our medicine's so great and blah, blah, blah. And then just today, the government came out and said, okay, we have some bad news. The life expectancy of Americans has dropped to, depending on whose numbers you're looking at, has dropped to, let's see, 76.4. Okay, from 77 to 76.4, and some organizations say 75. Okay. Wow. And
that's not funny.
That's not funny. There's reasons for that, of course. And the reasons are because of all this COVID thing and the pandemics and inflation and all the world stuff going on. So many businesses have closed. People have lost their health insurance. People have had to, which I eat, get moldy bread and throw the 3 pieces of bread with the mold on it away and eat the bread. Well, they're getting gluten, which is bad, and may have some not yet spawned bread mold and stuff like that. And people are dying from simple things in America. Okay, and it's really, very scary stuff. And so I really want to say to everybody in the world, including Australia and New Zealand, and of course, I spent a lot of time there when I was in the Air Force, so I think I'm half New Zealander and half
Australian.
Maybe a third New Zealand, a third Australian, and a third American. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
That might work, but we do have the transition. Okay, is very important. Took place. We know the exact moment. We know, isn't that amazing? We know the exact moment when transition took place from wood and coal as fuel to electricity. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street in New York City, in the bluff overlooking the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. Thomas Edison pulled the switch, and electricity came online. And that was the beginning of all our troubles. That was the beginning of all our health troubles, because how many wood ashes or coal ashes are there in your house when you use electricity?
Absolutely none, unless you burn yourself on fire.
Unless you have a fireplace or something like that, right? but you're not going to have large amounts of wood and coal ashes like it used to be thousands of years before the Old Testament. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Humanity has used wood ashes and coal ashes as fertilizer in their garden. They've used it as a spice in their food. And wood ashes and coal ashes are 95 to 97% minerals and 2 or 3% carbon. And so when you put them in your food as a spice, or you put them in your garden, and the carrots and the tomatoes and turnips and onions would suck up the minerals that came in with the wood ashes and coal ashes, we would get them that way. Well, once we went to electricity, and the story gets worse, Bronnie, the story gets worse because we went to hydroelectricity, so they could generate electricity with hydroelectric plants.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you need for a hydroelectric plant? A dam.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And people were so excited. Oh my gosh, not only are we getting electricity, but we don't have spring floods anymore because the dams have stopped the spring floods. Well, that's when everything went to hell, so to speak. And the reason is, of course, before the hydroelectric dams, every year those rivers would flood and the silt from the mountains would come down and go into the fields. And when the water would recede, the farmers would go out and plow in all those minerals that had come down with the spring flood into the soil and replenish the minerals every year for thousands of years. They're replenishing the minerals every year by putting the flood silt back into the soil.
And now they're not.
And now there's no flood silt anymore because we have the hydroelectric dams. And that's why suddenly now we have diseases nobody ever heard before. And doctors are calling them genetic and autoimmune diseases. We have all kinds of things going on that nobody ever anticipated because they're damming up the rivers. Okay, and we're no longer getting these minerals. And even the U.S. Senate said in 1936, the United States Senate said in 1936, U.S. Senate document 264, our farm soils in the United States and around the world no longer have sufficient minerals in them to support a healthy human longevity. So even the
proof
government
is there, isn't it? And still people don't get it. I don't understand.
They don't get it. And so this is why you and I and our teams have, we have a lifetime thing we have to do here. And that's to get the information out. And there'll be, it's always, there's thems that understand it and do it, and there's thems that don't.
Yeah, I think that's a bit like
for every subject, for every new thing, there's always thems that do and thems that don't. And in this case, the ones who don't are going to pay a horrible price. Okay, they're going to die. Their children are going to die early. Instead of living to be 120, as was given to us biblically, we're talking about the people who are great athletes. Okay, we're talking about, let's just talk about that a little bit, okay, because athletes are sort of the red warning light on the dashboard of the car, right?
Yeah.
And the red warning light is that the athletes are dying faster than non-athletes. We're talking about Olympic athletes, professional athletes, amateur athletes, university athletes. They're dying like crazy, okay? And we're talking in their 30s, 20s, and so forth. And exercise is supposed to be good for you. So why aren't they living longer? Well, that's because when they're sweating, okay, because doctors tell them not to eat salt, don't take any vitamins, minerals, just eat well, you get everything you need. And so they're sweating out all their nutrients, all this exercise, and their immune system is collapsing, okay, because you need the nutrients to maintain your website. So we have a CD set that we need to get into Australia and New Zealand. 3 CDs. One is Dead Athletes Don't Lie. It goes into the stories of these famous athletes who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s dying of simple nutritional deficiency diseases because they exercised and played sports, but didn't take any vitamins and minerals because they were told by their team doctor, don't waste your money on vitamins and minerals, just eat well, get everything you need, okay?
Yeah, well, I've had my doctor tell us that as well. A few years back, oh, you don't need any of that. You'll get it all in your bit. I'm hanging, no. had our local pharmacist say the same thing. He's like, no, supplements are bad for you. You don't need that. You just need to eat good. And they don't eat good, let me tell you.
Yeah, you need to
They don't eat good. I know
I'd
what
send
they
them an
eat.
email.
They
Send
drink a
them an
lot.
email. Send them an email and say, be sure that your family sends me a notice when you die. Okay.
We're a small
So,
town. I think I'll know.
okay. Then CD number 2 in the set. Okay, Dead Athletes Don't Lie. That's the one that talks about all these young athletes dying because they're sweating out their nutrients and not replacing them by supplementation. Okay. The second CD in the set is Exercise Without Supplementation is Suicide. Now we're talking about big executives and CEOs and big corporate owners and stuff like that. One just died 2 months ago. He was which I say, one of the founding fathers of Red Bull. Okay, that's sports energy drink. Okay, he died at 78, and he was bragging until the day he died. He drank 10 cans of Red Bull every day for 25 years, and then he died. Okay, and so and then it has all these other famous corporation, again, the people who run the outfit, okay, dying at young ages and so forth, because they're not taking vitamins and minerals. They're just eating well. They'll buy a $200 dinner for one person.
It's crazy.
And think, well, I mean, why should I take vitamins and minerals? I'm paying $200 for this top dinner, so I'm getting everything I need. No, not true. That's like putting expensive farmland from Texas in your car instead of oil. Come on, there's bound to be some oil in that expensive land from Texas because it's Texas land. It's bound to have some oil in it. It doesn't work that way, does it?
No.
Okay.
Gee, wouldn't it be nice if it did?
Yeah, but it doesn't. Okay, the third CD in that set is What Kills Billionaires. The average lifespan of professional athletes in America is 56.7. The average lifespan of billionaires in America is 66.8. And they can afford anything. They can afford the best medication. They can afford the best doctors. They can go to the best hospitals, and they're dying at 66.8. What? Okay. It's rather scary. So those 3 CDs, okay, are available now. We're still waiting on the label. It'll be about a week. We'll have the label for the cover that goes for those 3 CDs. The 3 CDs are done. They're ready to go. And we have another one we're working on. It has 10 CDs in it. It's called 10 Healthy Secrets Your Doctor Doesn't Want You to Know. And it's Zooms that I did with a pharmacist Keith Abel. And so he was giving the pharmacy side of thing, and I'm giving the vitamin mineral side of thing. So these CDs are really, really very good, I think. And so they'll be very useful in helping people make, I think, appropriate decisions. And so my goal is to add 25 to 50 healthy years to people's lives, because again, if you add 25 years to people's lives, and our life expectancy in America is 75, you're going to be 100. In New Zealand, it's 82.3, and in Australia, it's 82.9. So let's just say 83 for both Australia and New Zealand, just for easy math. If if everybody gets to add 25 years to that, you're looking at maybe 107, 110 years of age. That's pretty good, right? And so
It is.
Yeah, it's worth eating properly and getting rid of the bad foods, get it on the good food, bad food list, and then take the 90 essential nutrients so that you're getting everything you need to give your body what it needs to maintain itself and repair itself. The body has the capacity to do that, but it does require these nutrients for the machinery to work.
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing
big like a car. Getting back to the analogy of the car, not just the oil from Texas, but all the parts. If you don't give it,
well, you need heavy grease,
lubricant type oils, then the parts
you
won't.
need
Greasy stuff.
you need heavy grease for the lubrication of the moving parts. You also need let's see here. You need gasoline for fuel. And so, but people want to find some way to do something different. And that's why they went to electric cars. Oh, no pollution. I'll see how
Yeah,
that's working.
well, the electric car, like that blows my mind, especially in a country here in Australia where everything's so far away. It's, running around the city maybe, but that just to build the batteries, and then the fact that those batteries they can't do anything with them.
Mm.
They're causing more harm to the environment than what we call petrol is to the planet. So I just don't get the analogy. And can you imagine what the electricity bill is going to be?
Well, it's when one section of humanity takes over, and their theories get put into place, and the rest of everybody suffers. Okay, and so
we wouldn't get very far here. We live out of town, so we'd have a trip to town and have to wait most of the day just to recharge the battery.
There you go.
Well, maybe we might get to town and back once or twice. We just couldn't.
Well, they're going to have to see. You and I need to come up with one of these portable battery chargers. They have like a little windmill on it, and you put it on the hood of the car, and the wind goes around and charges the battery. We'll have to think about that.
Or a solar one, right? Mind you, the windmill, those big wind turbine ones, they trouble me as well. I mean, they're worried about the environment, they're worried about this, that, and the other, but they're not worried about all the birds and things that those things kill.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what they do. It's like this, you're going to affect the environment one way or the other. Sorry,
there's always some side effect. That's absolutely true.
And if the wind doesn't blow, they're useless. If the sun doesn't shine, the solar panels are useless.
Okay, so
we got off the track, didn't we?
Did you have a specific subject you wanted to talk about today?
Oh dear. Well, we from what you said, we could go any direction, couldn't we? But anyway, so okay, to live younger longer, we need to look after lots of parts of our body. So we'll only tackle one at a time because we can't tackle it all at once. So probably the best thing to look after is our heart, do you think? Because they say this time of year, way too many people, more people die of heart attacks this time of the year than most other times of the year. And I think you probably have an answer for why that is, other than people forget to go, just don't want to bother the family.
Okay, well, there's two things. And of course, athletes are sort of like the scout out in front. So things that happen to them will happen to the rest of us if we're not careful, right?
Yes, like a scout in the army, right?
Yeah. And so when you look at the heart, how many nutrients does the heart require just to maintain itself? Remember, when you're sleeping, that heart is still working. It's beating.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're asleep. It's beating while you're eating. It's beating while you're driving the car. It's beating when you're reading a book. It never stops beating until you die. Okay, and so the heart is very important, and the heart requires a minimum of 90 essential nutrients that we know of.
Yeah,
the heart requires 90 essential nutrients that we know of. When it doesn't get what it wants, and again, some of these young athletes. They die of in the United States alone each year, about 2,000 of these young athletes under the age of 25, and some of them are 12, 15 years old. They die of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart attacks, just sudden heart attacks. I mean, they're in perfect shape. They just had a physical exam. Everything's perfect. They go out and they play, and in the middle of the game, they drop dead, or they come home, take a shower, and drop dead. And they gave no symptoms of having the problem. Okay, but they were deficient in these nutrients that are required to make the heart go. And this is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. This is the same disease that causes sudden death syndrome. Same deficiency that causes sudden death syndrome in kids under the age of 1 year of age. And you know what doctors said caused sudden death syndrome?
The mothers lying on them.
Mothers are laying on them and suffocating them. Can you believe that? They didn't know, so they just blamed it on the mothers. And all the mothers then began committing suicide because of their families were disowning them, because they laid on their babies. That's all so crazy.
It's pretty silly when the babies were crib, how the heck did the mother lay on them if the baby's in the crib?
Exactly.
They didn't think that through very well, did they?
They just didn't want to be blamed. Hey, we're the doctors here, and it's very obvious the mother laid on the baby and suffocated him. That's why the baby died. No, they were missing that same nutrient because it wasn't in the formulas. And my attorney, Jonathan Emord, and I, okay, and you're one of the health coaches, right?
Yes,
okay,
I am.
So you know Jonathan Emord and Cheryl Morley.
I do.
Okay. Well, he and I sued our FDA, Federal Drug Administration, okay, 9 times in federal court, okay, to get the ability to put these nutrients into the baby formula, because the baby formulas didn't have these nutrients in them, and that's why the babies were dying at 3 months of age and 6 months of age and a year of age because they're just having these baby formulas without those nutrients. So we finally got, we won in court and put these nutrients in the baby formulas. Within 90 days, you don't hear about cystic fibrosis anymore, which is a terrible birth defect caused by the same deficiency. You don't hear about muscular dystrophy anymore, and the telethons raise money to find a cure because we put that in the baby formulas, and so you don't hear about muscular dystrophy anymore. You don't hear about sudden death syndrome anymore, SIDS, because we put the nutrient in the baby formula, and it's all gone. Now, I'm the guy that did all that. Okay, I'm the guy that did got rid of those 3 diseases in our babies just by putting one nutrient into baby formulas. One nutrient saved thousands of babies all over the world.
Okay? Do you know, Doc? Can I interrupt for a second? There's actually a doctor in Sydney, a lady,
a woman.
Yes, and I think
she's claiming she figured it out.
Yeah, and I'm thinking she's a bit slow, and this is only recent.
Yeah, no, she just figured it out. Well, I figured it out 10 years ago.
I reckon she found your research, and that's actually, I don't even know if she's figured it out correctly anyway. So
yeah. No,
need to
I read
talk
that.
to her.
Yeah,
put her on to you.
Yeah. Well, what you want to do is say, hey, we're so excited for you that you figured it out. But we have a guy who figured it out 10 years ago. Has been published and everything in federal courts in the United States and blah, blah, blah. And they don't have sudden death syndrome anymore. They don't have muscular dystrophy anymore. They don't have cystic fibrosis anymore because Dr. Wallach put these, or forced the manufacturers to put these nutrients into the baby formulas and ended those 3 terrible diseases. Okay.
Yeah, can I just ask?
You should ask her to join us.
I should, yes, that's exactly what I do want to ask her. But I just, you know how, I know you've had that put in the formulas, but what about the mums who breastfeed their babies? I know we've got completely off the subject of hearts, but it doesn't.
No, it's not off the subject, because there's a lot of babies that were breastfed that died of sudden death syndrome. Now,
yes,
how did that happen? Okay, well, that happened because the mothers were eating gluten and buckwheat, and even if they were supplementing, let's assume they were supplementing, it was all going out into the septic tank out the back end because their intestines were dead. Because when you eat gluten and buckwheat, all your villi go away. You lose 90% of your absorptive surface, and your intestines are like a plastic tube. You can't, even if you're supplementing, you cannot absorb the nutrients. So they're just going out the other end into the septic tank. And so breastfeeding in of itself is potentially good, but it's also potentially bad if the mother's eating the bad foods, even if she's supplementing. Well, I'm taking the nutrients. What do you have for breakfast? Oh, I've been eating oatmeal my whole life. Well, that's why the baby died. Yeah. Because your intestines were dead because you're eating oatmeal for breakfast every morning. You're eating buckwheat for breakfast, or eating buckwheat pancakes, or you're eating buckwheat noodles and all that kind of stuff. And you're eating spaghetti for lunch. That's why, let's see, Bruce Lee. That's why Bruce Lee died at 32, because he had gluten with every meal.
I actually had a young mum call me last night, and she was talking to me about her. I think he's 6 or 7. I forget how old he is now, but one of the little boys. And he was having a terrible time. And she said, oh, I remember you saying something about oats. And I said, yeah, this bad, don't have it. And she said, yeah, I thought that's what you said. So just a few days ago, she stopped giving it to him, and suddenly his pains in his stomach stopped.
Isn't that amazing?
I told you, I've been telling her for nearly 2 years. And she said to me, I know, and she does do her best to eat well, but there's just some things that she still hasn't got
Doesn't
through her
matter.
head that
Eating
no, that
well
has
is
gluten in it.
good, but you cannot guarantee you're going to get all the nutrients because nutritional minerals do not occur in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. They occur in veins like gold and silver. They occur in veins like gold and silver. Okay. And so what if you're eating food that's grown in a garden that has only 3 minerals in it? You're missing 87 nutrients, including, well, let's see, 60. You need 60. So you're missing 57 minerals.
And she grows her own food too.
Yeah, but what does she put in as a fertilizer? Is it wood ashes, coal ashes, or is it a commercial fertilizer, NPK?
Well, I think it's just a commercial one. I've been trying to get her onto the blooming minerals.
Exactly, blooming minerals will save her kids.
Yes, it's just ironic that she just rung me out of the blue last night to talk about, lots of things, but that in particular, and a few other health issues that her kids keep having.
Yeah, and so this is why. And do you have access to a bookstore that has all my books and CDs? Does somebody have a bookstore?
Well, not a bookstore per se, but Kevin Grundy in New Zealand, he buys them in bulk for us down here in Australia and New Zealand. His sister lives on the Gold Coast, so she looks after us here in Australia. So so
you have easy access to the books and things.
Yes, so he buys them directly from you in bulk, and so that we don't have to go to the trouble of the exchange rate and shipping costs. Hopefully keep that down.
That's very good. Yeah, and of course, a very, very important book, which I probably don't talk about enough, is the book Hell's Kitchen. Now, the name Hell's Kitchen was given to a district in the city of New York City because every bad thing in the world occurs there. I mean, every crime you can think of occurs there, so they call it Hell's Kitchen. It's where every bad thing is conjured up and cooked up. Okay, so they call it Hell's Kitchen. It's been that way for, I don't know, 50 years or more. Okay, and so this book, Hell's Kitchen.
I can see it there behind you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it goes through the history of all of the various things that happen in the agricultural and farming industry and politics and so forth that got us into the situation we're in. And of course, the electricity was the big change. Okay, electricity was a big change because once we gave up wood ashes and coal ashes, where was the fertilizer? Okay, there's no ashes when you use coal, when you use electricity. And then it's worse because you have the hydroelectric dams damming up the rivers, so there's no more flood silt renewing the minerals in the fields every year that are used to for thousands of years for the floods. The floods were very valuable because they would enrich the silt back into the farm soils. Once you built the dams for hydroelectric, Hell's Kitchen. And so the book goes into the details of all these changes that took place that brought us to where we are now, why we have so many terrible diseases that were never in biblical times, because they were getting the minerals from the wood ashes and coal ashes.
It's very interesting, when you go back and when did this all start? And to be able to pinpoint something, and that's not always an easy thing to do.
We have it pinpointed to the minute, the hour, and the day.
Because it's written there in the history books.
Yeah, it's written in Hell's Kitchen.
I must admit I don't have that book yet. So I've got to just get them one at a time. I'd like to get more than one at a time, but sometimes the finances don't stretch that far.
Well, you can't read more. You can't read more than one at a time.
Well, exactly right. This is my favorite though. It's all in your head. I have it next to me all the time.
Yeah, well, it's good because you can explain things to people. My favorite pictures in the book are these. The top one, of course, is a normal skull cut above the ears, above the eyes. Yeah. The skull is taken off, and you can see it's a quarter of an inch thick. In the bottom, it's a skull from an equal age person. Instead of a quarter of an inch, it's 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. Okay, because of all the osteoporosis changes in the bone. And
Mm.
so the 12 pairs of tunnels, there's 12 on this side and 12 on this side, and the tunnel in the back of the skull where the spinal cord comes out of has lost 75% of its internal volume. So it's squeezing the nerves and squeezing the spinal cord, causing 37 different diseases, which doctors gladly send you to their classmates and all these specialists and everything. But they're really just osteoporosis of the skull causing everything.
Yes, and that's another thing that doctors don't seem to want to acknowledge, is there's any such thing as osteoporosis of the skull. I mean, if you've got osteoporosis anywhere in your body, you'd have it everywhere, wouldn't you?
You got it. It's not just in one bone. You don't have, osteoporosis in your left knee. It's not the way it works. If you have osteoporosis anywhere, as you said, it's in every bone in the body. Yeah. And so what you're looking at when you have, say, something going on in your knee, your doctor says, oh, you have osteoporosis. We did an x-ray, you got osteoporosis of the knee. That's like the red warning light on your dashboard of your car. That little red warning light isn't the problem, but it's signaling you to check it out, okay, and make sure what the problem is, and so forth.
Mm.
And
yeah,
so
I come across that quite a lot. People say, "Oh no, I've only got it in my knee, or I've only got it in my lower back," and I'm thinking, okay, you must have a weird body.
Oh, that's the only bone you have in your body.
Yes. Oh, well, no, we got a lot more than that.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, we got time for a few more questions here.
Well, now the thing is, right? You've alluded to the dams and the blocking up of the dams and the silt not getting through. I knew I was saying it wrong. This dyslexic tongue gets me.
Soot is the smoke in your chimney, and silt
it is. But anyway,
is the dust and clay coming down from the mountains.
Anyway, that sort of then brought to my mind our Great Barrier Reef here in Australia. Now, I know that you and I and a few others here have done a little bit of research into that. Oh, must be at least a year ago now, I'm not sure. But anyway, about how we can help the Great Barrier Reef to recover. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, the northern part of the Great Barrier Reef is not impacted by this. The southern part of the Great Barrier Reef is not impacted by this subject. It's only the central part of it where there's hydroelectric dams for power.
Yeah.
Okay. And when the hydroelectric dams for power shut off the flow of that silt that used to go out to that reef, the Great Barrier Reef, that's not going out anymore. So that's why the center part of the Great Barrier Reef is struggling, because all of those algae and planktons and corals and everything, they need those minerals that are in the silt.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why that reef is there, because for thousands of years before humans came along, all that silt was going down in there. And so the Great Barrier Reef was forming a long time ago, long before humans came along. Okay. And now we came and interrupted the center part of it, because this is where the big hydroelectric dams are in Australia, okay, is facing the Great Barrier Reef. And so there's 2 or 3 different ways to deal with this. Number one, we can pump the silt from behind these dams and have a tube take it down and spread it around, like a thing that just goes back and forth and spreads that silt to the center part of the Great Barrier Reef. Or it can just be dumped into ships, and the ships can go back and forth and dump it, out, spray it, and spray the silt out, so that the Great Barrier Reef polyps and corals, and all that kind of stuff have what they need to make the reef.
Yeah.
And reproduce and survive. And so,
well, you can knock all the dams down and let the river flow, but I'm sure they won't. No.
And see, and you have to appreciate that environmentalists says, "Oh, it's pollution."
They do.
Yeah, it's because that's their agenda.
Yeah.
They're taking an event and twisting it around so that they can yell about it and get some donations and so forth from like persons and so on. And, their ultimate goal, I'm assuming, is correct and righteous, but they're not really paying attention to the truth and the details on how to get there.
No.
Okay, so I fault them for that.
Yeah, and that's quite sad, because people do donate to these organizations in good faith, but their donations don't go where they should go.
That's correct.
And that's the same with these helping these third world countries.
They should be running the system that delivers the silt to the center part of the Great Barrier Reef.
Mm.
That's where the money should be going, not to their pockets.
Yeah, exactly. And this is sadly, through way too many, in fact 99.9%, I'd dare to say, of what do you call them, these charities and stuff. It breaks my heart to know that the money you give in all good faith doesn't get to the people that need it, or to the area that they're claiming.
Well, I saw that when I discovered the cause of muscular dystrophy. Okay,
yeah.
I discovered the cause of muscular dystrophy, and we were able to cure. I'm going to use a cure word: dozens and dozens and dozens of kids in the United States that had muscular dystrophy, and just cure them. And we gave all their charts and the doctors' examinations and tests and everything to Jerry Lewis, with a telethon, and he raised the money to find the cure, blah, blah, blah. For 46 years, almost 50 years, he raised $2.5 billion with a B, $2.5 billion to fund the research to find the cure. Well, they never found it. But I discovered it and gave it to these kids and cured them, gave all to Jerry Lewis. And he came and he talked to the doctors and looked at the kids and talked to the parents and everything, and he believed it, which was true. And he accepted that we had found the cure. And so he took it to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. I think it was like the 4th of September in 2011. And he took it to them, and they fired him immediately and shut down the telethon. That's why you haven't heard about the telethon since 2011. And he died 2 years later. Okay, so I'm glad at least before he died, he got to hear that we did find the cure after all his
probably
efforts.
Died of a broken heart
Exactly.
Of all those people he's deceived. When and that really troubles me, that these organizations deceive people. I mean, we've had really bad bushfires here and floods, and a lot of people have donated to those to help the people in need. And I know here personally in our district, people who lost their homes in the bushfires, and that was 2019, still have nowhere to live, still are not allowed to rebuild their homes. They've still got nothing.
They can't find
and
a job.
We've been through 3 floods since then as well.
They need to find a job.
Oh, they have, but this money that was donated to them, the organizer, oh no, we're hanging on to that for the next emergency.
Mm.
We've had 3 floods since the bushfires, and they're still hanging on to it. And these people are still, they've been wiped out with bushfires, they've been wiped out with the floods, and they're still, living in tents and caravans because, the powers that be won't either give that money
to become them, a way of life. Become a way of life. Or
the councils won't let them rebuild. There's all sorts of reasons, but none of which make any sense.
When there's forces of nature, the government should step in and give them loans or something like that to rebuild their homes so they can get back to a normal life. Just keep building large communities of people who are just living out of trailers and trucks and cars and stuff like that for 10 years, and it's crazy.
Well, that's the sad thing, Doc, is these people donated all this money, and the government and the charities are all hanging on to it and not giving it to the people. They're just lining their own pockets. Hello, we donated that money in good faith so you could help those people rebuild instead of, they can't. It's just wrong. It's shouldn't be that way. And of course, their health is going to suffer as well.
Yeah, well, that's what votes are for.
Yeah, well, we won't go there. That's getting a little bit more political now. Oh,
But at any rate, let's go back to the heart. Okay.
yes.
And the heart, of course, when you get a congestive heart failure, which is very common, it's a deficiency of a single vitamin. And what happens is congestive heart failure, the heart gets bigger and the leads for the valves don't meet. And so when the heart beats, it pushes the blood up in the upper chamber, okay? Or normally the valve would prevent that from happening. That's only supposed to go one direction instead of just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's why people with congestive heart failure, die, okay? Because it doesn't get the blood with the oxygen in it and the food in it out to the rest of the body. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But we have a product called De-Stress. And so I like people to get on the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. And they take the De-Stress according to the body weight. Usually you want to take 3 twice a day per 100 pounds of body weight when you have congestive heart failure. And when you have Alzheimer's disease or MS, something like that, also you want to use that De-Stress because it's also good for the blood vessels in the brain as well as the heart. And then we already talked about the heart death in athletes and so forth. We've dealt with that. Of course, we have our Rebound, which has those minerals in it. Okay, we have the sticks. There's 30 of these sticks in a box. Okay, there's no carbonation in them. We have the canister. There's 36 servings in the canister.
That's the one we have here.
Okay, and there's a little scoop, 1 scoop for into a bottle of water. And then, of course, we have the cans, which is way over there, so I'm not going to reach. Oh, maybe I will. You don't have the cans there?
No, we don't have the cans in Australia.
Yeah, not yet, but eventually, I'm sure. Okay, we do have the cans, and the cans do have carbonation in them. Okay, so what I like to do is I pop the tops on them, put them in the refrigerator at night, and it off gases the carbonation all night. In the morning it's flat, all the bubbly is gone, and so I'll drink one of these at breakfast that's been decarbonated. If I come in immediately and we don't have one in the refrigerator, I'll just make one out of the canister like you guys do, okay? Which I had for breakfast this morning because we got all kinds of stuff going on. But anyway, very important for the heart. And then the clogged arteries have nothing to do with cholesterol. This is a big mistake the doctors made over 100 years ago when they blamed cholesterol. There's a new thing they found called cholesterol, and they're blaming that as a cause of the coronary arteries being clogged. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's why they came up with, cholesterol free diets and all this kind of stuff. And then they came up with a bunch of new diseases nobody ever seen before: Alzheimer's disease and MS and Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is just a cholesterol deficiency. Those 3 are just a cholesterol deficiency. Those 3 are just a cholesterol deficiency. Okay. And cholesterol has nothing to do with coronary artery disease. It's eating food cooked in olive oil that's been on your shelf for 3 years. Okay. Olive oil, it's oxidized, right? And it's oxidized oil going in and causing the arteries, your coronary arteries in your heart, in the brain, and every place in your body getting clogged. And doctors just bought into it that it was a cholesterol issue. No, not even close. And so they got that one wrong. And when they got everybody off of cholesterol, suddenly now we had a new disease called Alzheimer's disease, MS, and Guillain-Barré syndrome, Parkinson's disease. Those diseases didn't occur until they stopped. It told people to stop eating cholesterol, because cholesterol makes up 25% of the brain weight and 25% of the spinal cord weight, and it's 75% of the total burden of cholesterol in the body. Okay, is in the heart, in the brain.
Yeah.
In the brain. Okay, it's one of those things where this is not difficult to understand, but well, my doctor says, everybody just throws that at me. Well, my doctor says, well, who in the heck is your doctor? Is he an agent of the devil? Is she an agent of the devil?
Yeah,
okay.
That's how it feels at the moment.
Why are they perpetuating misinformation? Is it financial? Is it because it wants you? I mean, why is all this? And so I do have another CD, which has been around for a little while, but it's called Dial MD for Murder. Dial MD for murder. It's titled after a movie, Dial M for murder. I don't know if you're old enough to remember the movie Dial M for murder. Okay.
I have heard of it.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I ever watched it though.
Okay. So we called this CD, which is it was actually a lecture I gave to a large like 3,000 people. Okay.
Yeah.
And and what I did was collect all this information about all these diseases that are being mishandled where the proper treatment wasn't given. And all the data came from the government and universities. Okay. We're talking about medical schools saying this was incorrect information given to the public. And then the government sent out representatives from different areas of the government. Okay. And so I'm just parroting what they reported. So I let everybody know I'm just telling you what's been reported, okay, by the government and by universities and medical schools. This is not me making this stuff up. I'm just a reporter here, okay? Yeah. And so don't think, oh, well, it's really crazy. No, I'm just a reporter. I'm not the one that generated this information. Dial MD for murder. So everybody needs to listen to that because what's true here was true all over the world because people all over the world were following what our doctors forced.
Yeah, they do. And the governments, sadly. Why, I don't know. But,
okay, one other thing that's of value is rare earths forbidden cures. We got a little bit of time. We can talk about rare earths forbidden cures. It's a great book. And as the name implies, it talks about minerals, rare earths, okay, minerals. That's what they used to be called in the old days. And the only way to determine how many there are if you're absorbing them is with a hair analysis. The only ones you can determine from a blood test is calcium and iron. And you test iron indirectly by testing the red blood cells.
Yeah.
You test oxygen, okay, because it's a gas. And so when you test everything else, all the other 58 minerals, okay, it's one of those things where you're going to get two charts back from, if you go to chapters 10 and 11, and page 272 is where it starts. And it'll tell you if you're absorbing, if you have a gluten problem, because if all your nutritional minerals are at the bottom, they're not above the bottom line, if they're not even showing on the chart, that means you're eating gluten. You're not absorbing. I've been supplementing for 10 years. How come? That's because you've been eating gluten. You've been eating oatmeal for breakfast and buckwheat noodles for lunch. Okay, that's why you've killed your intestines so you can't absorb. And then also, you get another chart, which are the toxic minerals. You cannot tell from a blood test. You have to have biopsies of your liver. You want to have a biopsy of your liver where you can just do a hair analysis, okay? And
well, I think it'd be easier to have the hair analysis than a biopsy.
Yeah, and of course, you don't have to have, what should I say, a doctor's permission. You do this yourself. All the information on how to collect the hair, where to send it. Don't forget the check or the money order because
or all the side effects of a surgery.
Yeah, the laboratory won't run the test without the money, but so you find out all this stuff, and it's unimpeachable evidence because it's a third party. It's a big laboratory. They do this all over the world, and so they've been doing it a long time. They're very, very good and accurate, and so I like hair analysis for that reason. So we see a couple of hundred every month where people get the hair analyses, and so we see a couple of hundred every month. They send us a copy of the hair analysis, and I can look at them and tell them what's going on by looking at their hair analysis. I don't even need to see them.
Yeah. Yeah. So my sister lives in Idaho. One of my sisters, she lives in Pocatello, Idaho, and she had hers done, and she's still struggling to figure out the charts. And she says every time Doc rings me, my phone doesn't ring.
Oh, she needs to ring me.
Yeah, she rings you and then you're not available. But anyway, but you had left a message for her to say, do you live in a nuclear plant? Do you have a wave or something come through there? Or I can't remember exactly what she said because it showed that up. And the thing is, though, Doc, her husband actually works at a nuclear plant. So I said to her, and I kept saying to her before this, actually, he needs to, when he gets home, he needs to strip off in the garage and put those clothes in there and go straight to the shower, not come near her, because he's contaminating her. He's taking his dirty clothes off in their bedroom and sticking them in their clothes hamper so they're all in together. I said, nah, you need to keep these separate. You need to wash. Because, they get a bus to and from. So they can have shower work. He said, what's the point? I'm just putting the dirty clothes back on.
Yeah, that happens with gluten too. Cross-contamination in the laundry, the bed, the couch, the rug, the kitchen. Cross-contamination is very, very common with poisonous things, as well as with things like gluten and phagopyrines out of buckwheat. And so it's not difficult, actually. Once you know what's going on, the process to find out what's going on is quite easy. And you can figure that out. Oh, where'd you go?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Can't you see me? I'm still here, Doc.
I see you. Oh, you disappeared for a moment. Okay.
Oh, there you go. You must have a glitch in your system over there.
Yeah. I have to do a hair analysis on my computer.
That sounds like a good plan.
Okay. So, at any rate, Christmas is coming up, and I want to wish you and yours a very, very happy Christmas. But make sure that they know, that you're going to be giving them gluten-free food and phagopyrene-free food. Okay. Phagopyrene food, which is the buckwheat. Can't have any buckwheat noodles or buckwheat pancakes or anything like that, or buckwheat cereal, because it will destroy your intestines and give you all kinds of problems. Okay. It's one of those things where doctors have made millions of dollars over the years for treating the symptoms of simple diseases that could be treated and reversed for, maybe $50 a month.
Yeah. Or maybe a little bit more, being Australia, but this is the best thing about living in Australia.
Well, there you go.
It's usually hot for Christmas. Usually, I say, having unusual weather at the minute. So we have more salads and stuff for Christmas. So, which makes it a little bit easier to avoid all those bad foods. Thankfully. Actually, this time last year, I was doing a liver detoxing. I was near the end of my 30-day liver detoxing, and that was interesting. But because it was so hot and we're having salad, it was actually easy for me to still do that liver detox and not mess it up, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing to do. But as you say, it's coming up to the top of the hour, and Christmas here it's Christmas Eve. So Merry Christmas to you, Doc, and to your family.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you and your family and your Youngevity associates and all of the peoples in Australia and New Zealand. We love you, guys and gals, and thank you so much for all you do. You're definitely part of the family, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Yes, we will. And
okay.
Guys, I don't know what we'll talk about next week, but we always find something to talk about, don't we, Doc?
Yes.
And then that'll be New Year's Eve. So whoo, more celebrations. Well, Doc, thank you so much for coming here to Bronnie's World. And as I asked my viewers very nicely, to stay safe, stay informed, guys, and be empowered. And when you're, having a wonderful, safe, gluten-free Christmas, you will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. God bless you all, and God bless you, Doc. And thank you so much for coming.
God bless you.
To Bronnie's World. Bye. And don't forget to check me out on my YouTube channel. That's where I'm posting them all. Sorry.
Okay. We'll get it done.
It's just Bronwyn Clinton. That's all it is. It's simple, just my simple name. Easy to find me then.
Okay.
Okay. Catch you next week, Doc. Have a great time.
Bye-bye.
Okay. I got to find the stop record button. Here we go.